Sustainable studio in an unsustainable industry. Could you maybe paint a scene like you've been through a few ups and downs?
Every game project is a gamble. Even the safe bets are gambles. I didn't want constantly to have to be laying people off. Kind of just kept asking ourselves, what are the alternatives?
Today I'm joined by a game studio founder who spent the last several years building something steady in a part of the industry that rarely is. After about 6 years at Riot, he co-founded Game Breaking Studios and helped grow it into a self-funded business with 50 plus clients and more than 25 employees.
Let's build a real business. I want to operate a real business this time. Games companies largely operate on one side of that equation for 3 to 5 years as they get started. And that's not a real business until the end.
We talked about what it really takes to build a sustainable studio in an unsustainable industry, why co-development gave them a more stable foundation than chasing funding, and how they run a remote team across countries, and why teaching creatives the financial side of the business matters if you want fewer bad bets.
It feels crazy inside the business, but for job stability, it feels like a much more sustainable foundation to build it all on. I wanted to run a business in the game industry for the next 30 years, and I never want to bet the farm on one thing.
From someone who has been both inside a major studio and the reality of building one from scratch, please welcome this episode's guest, co-founder of Game Breaking Studios, Dru Erridge. Dru, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Likewise. So for everyone at home, quick rap sheet. 6 years at Riot Games, and Dru, after that, co-founded Game Breaking Studios with two friends from uni. Lovely story. And that was over 7 years ago now. And since then, even though they initially considered VC fundraising, they decided to go self-funded co-dev business, which is now sustainable and has been working long term. So I'm going to go straight into a quick highlights. Over 50 happy customers, 25 plus employees. We have a live build tool, shipped live game, and been doing that for 6 years, all bootstrapped. Did I get that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. It feels like the story stretches back so far because they're friends from college, right? Like It's like, I met Sean maybe my first week at university, right? So I've known him for 15 years, and we did a contract project out of our dorms, like way back
so
when.
This runs deep.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It feels like it's been a long time.
So for people at home, before we dig in, can you share maybe how the business is set up? Because you were chatting to me before the podcast started, and it was quite interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the three founders mean that we're always kind of doing things in three parts. And so largely there's co-development, which is the bread and butter of the business, 75, 80% of what we do by any volume that headcount, money, whatever. And then there's bespoke CI, which is sort of our tools business for selling a build and deploy solution. And then there's just full end-to-end game development, which kind of like springs up and down and up and down. And usually that's under Taylor's purview. But things rotate as
naturally.
happens. That's why there's three of us, so we can bounce things around over the years.
Yeah, I love it. You're solving the same problem, right? You're helping get games to life, and These are three different solutions. So yeah, it resonates a lot with kind of how I'm approaching my business, right? It's the same goal, but there's other ways to fix it. Great.
Right.
So when we were chatting before what to talk about, maybe obviously people click the thumbnail and watch the trailer, but you have a very interesting setup where you have been remote for a while. You have an international team. So big thing I want to talk about today is how to build a sustainable studio in an unsustainable industry, but also allowing you to kind of grow and as a team internationally, which I think is a problem that has been going back at least as long as I've been doing podcasts, since 2022. It started with remote work as the main reason we started a podcast, actually, Dru. So back in my previous job, everyone was saying, how do we run remote teams? So we started doing round tables, my previous job. And since then, no one's cracked it, in my opinion. I've had a few cool ideas. So we're going to go over how you do that, but then also how you create a stability for yourselves. And my favorite topic, financials. So like educating the creatives on the financials, and coming from you, I say this a lot when I go to a studio and I'm like, you're looking to raise 800K? And how much is marketing? Oh yeah, the publisher will sort it. I'm like, no, stop. And I'm coming from the outside. So when it comes from you, hopefully the message will come through. So yeah, I'm very excited. So let me start with kind of, maybe let's define that. So sustainable studio in an unsustainable industry. Could you maybe paint a scene like you've been through a few ups and downs? Like what's the to our audience, right? These are game professionals. Like maybe
Yeah.
paint the scene and maybe break a few beliefs on kind of what is the industry actually right now in your eyes.
Uh, Maybe I could give a little background on like how I came to believe that we're in an unsustainable industry. So I was very privileged. I came right out of school into Riot Games in their growth years for 6 years, right? Like uh, that looked great. Games as a service, when it works, looks very sustainable. But I went to one of the first schools that actually had like a game design program and game development program. And so it wasn't just me, right? There were, 50, 100 people in my cohort that I was watching go through their game development journeys. And most of them didn't look like mine. Let's just put it that way, right? Like even people at successful studios had tremendous amounts of crunch, had job instability, weren't paid very well in a lot of cases, right? And so my experience I could see was like an outlier, right? And when I did go to start this studio, we didn't know what we wanted. I'm being honest, right? Like the thing that evolved into what it is today really took the first 2 years of us working together and just saying, well, what do we keep asking each other? What do we want? What do we want? What do we want? And one of the things I knew is I just didn't want that, right? Like I didn't want constantly to have to be laying people off, everything to be a gamble. Every basically game, every game project is a gamble if you're a big studio. Um, even the safe bets are gambles, right? You can make a sequel and bomb it. That can happen. And so we kind of just kept asking ourselves, what are the alternatives? And at the same time, um, doing one of the things that was the alternative, right? Like doing co-development, um, because that was the first thing we knew. We didn't come into this like, here's one game we wanted to make. We had already made like my dream game sort of as a side project. And when we shipped that, that's what became Game Breaking Studios was us just looking at each other saying, hey, you still want to work together?
All right.
um, so yeah, then we started in co-development because that's what we knew. We had all been working in online games and started working in that and kind of like found ourselves saying, well, this is the thing that it feels crazy inside the business, but for job stability, feels like much more sustainable
Yeah,
foundation to build it all on.
for sure. I mean, parallel in my world, I never did marketing before, but I did it within a big company. And I couldn't just start a marketing agency. It became that. But when it started, it was like, let me just help this one company who needs a bit more help with this specific thing, and they will pay me for it. Right?
Yeah,
Services, getting money, there's no gamble, there's no headcount, it's just Harry. But then I got skill enough where now I can take multiple people, and then the team grows. Like it's a much lower risk way, and in my opinion, a better way to learn because you are learning with multiple projects. And I think in game development, we said this before the call, like code development kind of is like, yeah, code development exists. But like, no, like it's behind some of the pretty much every big title. If you go to the credits, the amount of studios that worked on that game is crazy. Like is huge. And a lot of people I speak to are code devs with the nature of what I do. So I think do you get that actually? Like, if is anyone going to be listening to this? I feel like they are, where they maybe think, let me get a job and get the games industry. Do they just forget that code dev is an option? I'm curious. Like, how has
100%.
it been? For you? Yeah, really. Wow.
100%. Yeah. I spoke to one of the things that actually like helped us 5 years ago, right? Was one of the Jason Schreier books, like that was like, the game industry is terrible and here's a story about how it's terrible. And at the end he's like, maybe there's a bright light, and it was like codev. And I was like, oh,
Wow.
this is an interesting conclusion to come to. But then I would talk to like students and their stuff, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I read that book, and like I know what codev is. And I was like, this is the first time I've had this conversation with someone who hasn't like literally worked the job before. Like even people at those major studios who do lots of codev don't always understand
And
it,
they have, oh wow, like a big part of what I do is we've helped like probably 5 code dev companies like get new work. And when we do the content strategy, a big part of what we do is mistaken beliefs. The amount of false beliefs about what a code dev could look like. It's like in every industry, right? There's bad code dev and good code dev. But yeah, code dev is, yeah, I feel like he's an advert for all code devs right now. But like, yeah, it's a big part of the industry and it's not going away. And I think I used to be in contract recruitment, Drew. So contract recruitment after COVID, it's definitely spiked, but it
right?
still took a while. But now I feel like since we became a lot more global as an industry, Like from our side of the pond, it's very common topic. Like US has after COVID learned to offshore a lot of stuff
Yep.
through codev because just money, right?
Yep.
And I don't think that's genie's coming back in the bottle. It's now a global industry,
Yes, exactly.
and yeah, and I think like for me, I like to look at the movie industry. Like there are films made about England, recorded in New Zealand and Australia, just because it's better, and they're going to use locals there, and because all the tax credits or what have you. So yeah,
Right.
I think we're now in a global industry where the opportunities are it's a bit more distributed. I don't know how else to put it. So yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into how to build a sustainable studio.
Yeah.
So if I can ask you, imagine you have Drew in front of you, day
hmm
one, and you have Drew right now, and he's listening to his podcast. What is the one thing he needs to know, like before he gets into the journey of starting a code dev? What do you wish? Maybe you save him a few months or sleepless nights.
I could save him a year or two of indecision, right? That like this is what we started doing, but it wasn't the thing that we hadn't settled on it, right?
Oh
We were
wow,
doing it
you
because
like
we knew
half decided it?
no, I'm always just like I'm open to all options, right? Like
Mm.
if it comes to be that we have like this great game idea, sure, we can pursue financing, right? That was for the first year, I was like, sure, we could pursue financing, but like let's get a feel for the industry. Let's work with some people. Let's build some things. And like one of the things that was always a driver for me was like, let's build a real business in games. I
Mm.
feel like a lot of games businesses, and I worked for half a dozen startups during the like social mobile days when I was in college. And like all of them went nowhere and made no money. And I was like, let's build a real business. I want to operate a
Yeah.
real business this time.
As in revenue and costs. Yeah.
Yes, like literally, games companies largely operate on one side of that equation for 3 to 5 years, oftentimes as they get started, and
Yeah.
and that's not a real business until the end, and so you don't get to have any of the lessons of the things you don't know. As a game developer, you know about building games. As a business owner, you don't learn until the last, in
And you
a
can't
lot of
have a
cases.
4 year feedback loop. That's crazy. Like I'm cringing at the fact that like if everything you did went sour because of a decision you made in year one, you would literally find out in year three.
Yeah,
That's that's it's also like you said a gamble. Like if that goes well, they're going to be called a hero. Indies are back. I'm like, no, you got
yeah,
lucky.
yeah. So I might just tell myself, you're on the right path. Double
Hmm.
down now instead of, I think it was like 2 years later or something, we had kind of a big sit down meeting and we asked ourselves really hard, like, what do we want to do? What's our lane? And basically, we were like, okay, we're 2 years in, we're self-sustaining, we've got whatever money in the bank, we don't need to go pursue financing.
Hmm.
Like, okay, so if we're not pursuing this like venture-backed financing thing, which everyone around us had done, all my friends had done, what are we doing? And I just said, let's do the opposite. Whatever their playbook is, let's run the opposite playbook, right? If everyone's zigging, you're zagging, especially if we already are not pursuing all the money. Because I'm like, if we do what they
Yeah.
do, they're going to do it better, right?
So
And
if
so
someone's oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
we ticked every box. It was like, well, what are they doing? Like the venture capital playbook is like, do one thing, do it right, growth at all costs. And I was like, okay, diversification, uh, take it slow and steady. Like that's our ethos. Is like
Love
we're
it.
the tortoise and you're the hare.
So
Like that
let's
was just our ethos.
So let's talk to the tortoises now, because I was going to ask you like whether someone should raise or not, but I think by the time someone's come to this part of the podcast, these are people who want to maybe consider what it looks like to maybe bootstrap and tortoise your way through. So, did you have to unlearn or maybe like take any lessons from Riot and your previous jobs that came in very handy? Because not everyone's had your perspective and history. So I'm wondering, we take someone who's like, yes, Drew, I want to do that for myself. I want to improve my current code dev business. Like, is there anything you took from your previous career that you'd love to share with people today?
I think one of the advantages I had at Riot is that when I was there, our teams were extremely self-sustaining. We did
What's
everything.
self-sustaining in game development? What does that mean?
We did everything. So uh, our goals were determined within the 12 people within us, 12 to 20 people
Hmm.
within our team. Our features were designed within the 10 to 20 people in our team. Um, Even from a technology standpoint, right? Like the backend services were written and then the deployment was written within our team. Like everything was internal to our team. And so I got to see every piece of machinery. I think there's a lot of jobs in game development where there is an assembly line, somebody up the
Mm.
stream writes a design doc, somebody in the middle writes a Jira ticket, and it shows up on your door. And like as an engineer, you program it, as an artist, you draw it. That was not how it
Mm.
operated, right? Like everything happened within our team. I got to see the design doc, first draft, iteration. I got to help write
How
the
is that
Jira
helpful?
ticket because in your own business you do it all, right?
Yeah.
And in code development sometimes you kind of do it all as well because I had to be a producer, I had to be a product designer. Sometimes I had to be a product owner. A lot of times, as a business owner, you just have to see it and do it all. Um, so
So as
yeah,
someone who
being able to
maybe
see
hasn't
every
been
side.
through that, sorry to interrupt. So as someone who hasn't been through that, Drew, but they're a killer game developer or a killer insert title, and they want to consider going on their own, should they not unless they've been through that, or can they pick those skills up? And what do you think?
Um, yeah, I mean, you're going to get a trial by fire. Like you're going to get an opportunity to exercise those skills, but I think it's going to be you're going to learn very quickly whether or not those things are good, whether you're doing it the right way in game development, because you're going to hire lots of people who are specialized at what they do, and you're going to have to fill the gaps. You're going to just have to seep into every corner of the pipeline that isn't
Yeah.
those people's job.
So would you recommend someone if they were starting a code dev studio to focus on, I guess, their expertise, but then let's say something is missing, like tap people up? Like it feels like quite scary when you put it that way. Like because if you're gonna go do a lot of things that you've never done before, um, yeah, I'd feel like I want to be qualified, right? I want to make sure I'm doing a good job. This comes to my mind.
Um, when we started with 3 engineers, I was terrified of not having coverage, basically, on
Yeah. So
lots of
what did you do?
different things. Um, and I wanted to go and hire those people, but we're a bootstrap business. You can't just hire the other disciplines unless you can go and find work for them. And I think one of our saving graces in that situation was that I had done a lot of other jobs on small teams that operated all themselves. I had done a lot of other jobs when we were running that side project, basically. Had gone
Nice.
out and hired contractors to do marketing and all these other things. So I would say either co-found with people who have done those other jobs, right? Or try to get a breadth of experience and talk to, find advisors that have done those other jobs,
Yeah.
figure out how to be a producer and whatnot. I think a producer or an ops person, like those are the jobs that you're going to be doing a lot as a founder, and particularly as a Coda founder, if you
Yeah, I
haven't
can
done them
imagine.
before.
Sweet. Let me talk about your secret sauce because we were chatting behind. Again, I mentioned before the podcast twice now, but I found it funny. So you use a very specific tool to run your business remotely, which I found very interesting. So how have you been remote since day one?
Basically, we started on card tables in my apartment. So there's
Classic.
three
Nice.
co-founders, and two of us lived down the street from each other in LA. The
Same.
third one lived in Dublin. So
Ireland?
yes,
Oh, okay. Wow.
so we had to have an answer for that, right? And we started out like everyone else did with just using whatever Google Meet, Google Hangouts, whatever it was called, and Slack. And I don't even know if we had Slack when we started. It's some version of that. Um, but I always wanted to be in person, right? I wanted to run a small, tight-knit studio, hang out with everyone after work. And I figured we would get an office in LA, and maybe Sean would be either an outlier or he'd come back someday.
Yeah.
That didn't pan out because like 9 months later, pandemic. Um,
Classic.
at that point, we started cycling through all the tools, trying everything out. We had to hire someone at like a year in. We had to hire someone, and they were cool with moving to LA. But then by the time we hired like the second person and the third person, like, are they all going to be cool with moving to LA when this is
Yeah.
all over? Probably not. So at that point, we started cycling through the tools, and we were on co-development. So I had experienced teams that basically never talked to each other, just Slack, and I had experienced teams that would get on the headset, put on the camera, and literally just have an open call for 8 hours a day, every day.
Wow. So you've had both
And
extremes.
that gave me anxiety. Um, and the opposite, where it was like, every time we want to talk, we must schedule a meeting, also just felt like corporate BS, right? Like that
Mm-hmm.
was the opposite of what I was trying to build with a tight-knit small studio. And then some friend was like, I just did this escape room during COVID in Gather, this weird little like, what if you bolted Zoom onto Pokemon, like Silver or something like that? And so we went and tried it, and it was awful at the start, right? It was like a fresh product, right? Like some studio had just put this together in the last couple months when we had tried it, but it was a totally different form factor. It like changed the flavor of remote work for me and my team. Um, and I was like, this is it. I'm sold. We can do remote work now, right? Like I'll give
Yeah.
up the office in
Maybe
LA
explain
because
what did Gather do?
the like really cringy thing is like presence. But I think there's things that are really important in any
I
working
found the
environment.
website. Maybe
Yeah,
this will help make it visual for people.
it's like, what if your office was like a an old school 16-bit RPG? You can walk around, you can see who's talking to each other, you can see what's going on. And so it had this really rich sense of presence that we tried Discord. People would say, "Oh, hang out in Discord, and people can like come into your desk channel or whatever." It was okay, but this was just a lot better. There was a lot more intuitively. You understand as a game developer. You look at that screen, and it's like, "Hey, it's a little MMO. I know that these people are talking to each other. It has enough of that to
Yeah.
matter. People can decorate their desk, decorate the space, and like have this shared space that has a little bit of personality
Yeah.
and becomes game breaking in a way that if all we have are these little submarine ports into each other's rooms, we don't have any shared space. Shared space is so important. Um,
So what's
yeah,
maybe changed over the last few years? Because how many people are using that now?
32 of us,
Yeah, that's
something
a
like
lot
that.
different than three, right? So I've only used, I
Yeah.
actually used Gather for my first job. I found it really fine, but I only used it for like 6 months, and it was for three people. So yeah, if anyone's considering remote work, maybe like what should they consider? What should they like definitely do that maybe helped you guys?
Yeah, we actually used like a relatively traditional setup from Gather. They just have like an office template. We started there and then just let people go crazy customizing it. We've had to do like office moves when we went from like 8 people to 15 to 30. We've had like 2 or 3 versions of the office where we had to upgrade and reorganize the space, which is kind of funny. Um, we have traditional meeting rooms. We have uh, your desk, so someone can walk up to your desk, have a chat with you. That's the real game changer, is like a couple of people can walk up to your desk, someone sees that you're talking to someone else, they know you're talking about the thing that's on their mind too, they wander over. But it was that happy medium between always on and like I can see everyone. And then it was like I can walk up to you and then we can start a conversation. My camera's not on 24/7. I can just like start my cam,
Yeah, it's
you
just
know?
better, right? It's just
Yeah.
more. Love it. So, in terms of remote work and maybe like leading, because you grew to a 30-person team, that's no joke, right? So, at least that's payroll for everyone, and that's a lot of
Nope.
work. So, that's a lot of work being done at game breaking studios. And I'm guessing what the way it was arranged in year one is different than the way it was arranged now. So, going up that much, like,
Yeah.
what's the what's the process to develop a efficient team? Let's put it that way, especially remote.
And if an efficient remote team, I think the thing that Gather and tools like that let you do is have a real-time conversation with somebody. And sometimes things need to happen quickly, and
Hmm.
sometimes things need to happen in high volume and high throughput, right? If something has to happen quickly with a quick turnaround, you need to be able to at least jump into a Slack huddle with them. Ideally, walk up to their desk, have a conversation, have the other people who are relevant to that conversation wander over. So that's something that we really believe in. We can get into that later. I think growing a studio has been a journey for us, and there have been 2 or 3 breaking points on size and shape. and having a really good sense for when that's about to happen and pushing through it, prepping for it, and breaking through some of the like adversity or people are averse to change. So when we were coming up to about 15 people, at that point we were one company. Even if we had a bunch of projects, we would have stand-ups like every day or every couple days or whatever and talk to everyone, see what was going on. And that was the point where I was like, okay, we're coming up on 15 people. We're going to break the studio into teams. And we're going to stop talking to all of each other so often. And there was all this like resistance to it at that
That's
point. They're
interesting.
like,
I've had the opposite, Drew. I
really?
tried to introduce stand-ups. We're like 10 people now, and we're
Sure.
going to grow to like 12 or so. But I had stand-ups on one team, and then after I was like, we don't want to do stand-ups anymore. And I was like, Monday and Friday. It's like, yes. And I was like, fair enough. It was just because it was sometimes useful, but the times it wasn't useful because there's so many people on the call. It just
Right.
felt like we were checking a box. So I'm very curious. Like 15 people on a stand up every day is no joke. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of people. So yeah, I'm wondering what you landed on.
It wasn't just stand-ups, just all of the rituals involved in running the company. We would do,
Yeah.
I grew up in sort of like an extreme programming Scrum like mindset, right? So we would do retrospectives on the whole company regularly. We still do, but it's like once every month or two now instead of every 2 weeks. We would do it on the whole company, get the vibe from everyone, see the things that were working and not working, and try to iterate, right? That's the most important one, I think. And people did like to see what each other was doing, and of course you have to like scale the cadence back on that as the company goes, it grows, and there's just so much more happening. Um, and so like reducing people's visibility, reducing their opportunity to have input at a company level, right? Like that was the thing for us. We wanted everyone to be part of this journey of growing this company early on. And when you start to like take away their visibility and their input, then they feel like they're losing control at some level, right? And it's true. But really, what it comes down to is it's a bigger ship, and it has to be steered more slowly. And I think that's happening again right now as we hit this 25, 30 person situation where we've got managers, and they're not just the founders. And that's going to change things again.
Yeah. Is that exciting?
It is exciting. I mean, I think it's exciting for what the opportunity is. The last couple years in this industry have been a roller coaster, and it's caused us to pause and like hunker down, just like everybody else that's survived, right? Um, but when you hunker down, I think opportunities for people to grow and like the hierarchy to change are less present if you're still at the
Mm.
same headcount you were last year or whatever. And so now that we're kind of growing again, it's like, oh, you wanted to try management, you wanted to try leadership, there's room for that. There's just growing room again. And that's really exciting for me to look at my team and say, you deserve an opportunity to try leading a team. Here it is.
Love it. All right. I want to move on into backend. What do people not understand about backend? Because from my understanding, it's not that sexy, but
Mm-hmm.
huge part of the industry, and you consciously have an arm of the business that does backend. So I'm wondering, I don't want you to teach me backend, but maybe teach me what people should know about backend from like a games business point of view. Does that make sense? Like, what do people maybe misunderstand of where backend fits in the game
Sure.
development process, kind of as a business? I'm curious, what's your take on that?
I think, for a long time in the games industry, this was kind of slapped together, right?
Hmm.
Game engineers would for the first 20 years of real corporate game development, AAA game development, call it, a handful of people would lean in on this that were otherwise game engineers. There weren't a lot of specialists in the space, and make it happen because you would bolt multiplayer onto your single player campaign, right?
Sure.
Um, and that changed a lot in the last 15 years. I think Riot on PC and obviously all of the mobile, the like long-term uh, basic games as a service made this a big deal. And they started pulling in people who had made an entire career in building online services and backend from big tech, right? Um, so Riot had a huge team doing this, right? But the difference, I think, here is like you looked at, I would say Bungie, I think, had like handful of people, maybe 5 or something, like doing backend for a while. And then Riot at some point had like 100 people doing it when they were just League of Legends. Like, what's the delta there, right?
Yeah, tell me, what is the delta there? I'm very curious. What happened? Is it because Bungie is 20 times more efficient? I'm guessing that's not the answer.
I think you can invest in this space at different levels of fidelity. I tell everyone, like, okay, you have an online game, games as a service. Running that game, you do need a team that owns that space. Um, but how much you want to invest in the feature set there and how much you want to invest in the reliability and all that stuff there, it's like, okay, if you want your online services to be up 90% of the time, that'll cost you X. If you want them to be up 99% of the time, that's going to cost you 10x. If you want them to be up 99.9% of the time, that's going to cost you 100x. It's
Wow.
every little bit more quality, reliability, whatever is a sort of an exponential curve, I
Would you
think. How
recommend that's
much?
in-house or is this an outsourcing thing? Because traditionally, I've heard this become like I've had a few people on the podcast who do this. I have think Coherence and Nitrado,
Yeah,
and of course they are from those companies, and they say it's better to do outsource, right? But like from my understanding, you are talking about a studio themselves kind of doing this.
yeah.
Like, what's been your experience? Like, if you were to speak to a developer now, like, what should they keep in mind?
I mean, I think 5 or 10 years ago the answer was in-house. And when we were building our side project was called the Maestros. When we were building that, there just weren't a lot of tools out there. It was like Azure
Yeah,
and AWS was new. You could use virtual machines in the cloud, but that was about it. And then we had the playfabs of the world and like that first generation of alternatives. And now we've got the, Pragma, Excel Byte. I don't know what playfab's doing now, but I'm sure they're still around doing stuff. There's like a second or third generation of the like outside tools. I'd say that's the second generation where they're trying to do it all. And the third generation now is like all these atomic pieces. Everyone has like a tiny little slice of that. What is your online services ecosystem pie? And so I think you at least need to consider these options of what can you get off the shelf, and then from there, how much do you want to have in-house and how much do you want to like do co-development for? And in that space, I think I tell everyone you should have a lead in-house that you know and trust that provides continuity in this space. From there, if you want to invest further, I think it's a smart idea to engage co-development, because they get to see this across a dozen projects. Like we've
yeah,
worked on over 50 projects, and at least half of them we've been in this backend online services space. The other half are probably like more Unreal focused projects. So we
there
get to
you
see
go.
a lot of people do this, and a lot of people do it right, and a lot of people do it wrong. We can help you with vendor selection, right? Like those are there's no substitute for experience when it comes to working with different tools, because
Yeah,
everyone can have a snazzy like how-to page or they can have a terrible one, but until you spend years with it, you don't know.
mm,
And you will be spending years with it. Game development's a long process.
yeah, and I think that it's a very important point. Like, if you are going to work with someone, have they seen your problem dozens of times or not?
Hmm.
And if they haven't, probably get that person's advice, right? So
Yeah.
you don't make a decision that you sit with for years. I am gonna speak to the person listening to this who's in Unreal, because from my understanding, you experimented. Just looking at my notes here, like with prototyping with Unreal, with like their new thing. So I'm wondering, just curious, like deep down, we're doing code dev, right? Because it's a good business. But does every game developer not want to do their own game someday, right? Yeah. So if that's the case, how do we do that when we have safe option here? Let's say I'm a code dev studio and I want to graduate.
Yeah.
All my resources are in code dev. Who's doing prototyping? How much time? And in this economy, or sorry, marketplace, this is just my personal observation. I don't make games. I just talk to people who do. I'm like, prototyping needs to be so rapid and needs to hit the market so fast to then be decided if it's worth investing in. But when you have code dev to worry about, does that ever happen? Can you ever graduate, quote unquote, as a code dev to your own IP? It's like prototyping is one of the most important things. I'm just wondering, what's your approach to prototyping? Because you've worked in Unreal for a lot of these projects, and like you can prototype within Unreal I guess, relatively faster than something else. Yeah, I'm just wondering your thoughts on. There's two things we can cover here. Maybe you can pick, Drew. Like graduating as a code dev to do your own IP. Should you even consider it like that? And number two, like on prototyping. So maybe you can pick.
Yeah, you've caught my attention with this like graduating from codev thing. Um, the conventional wisdom says don't try. So of course we have to try.
But what do you mean? Why are we here? Don't try. Just forever make games for other people. Well, if that happens, eventually there is no one making games. So that's not a good option. I refuse.
Right. So, the conventional wisdom says don't try. History is a great teacher here in that a lot of successful studios have gone through this path, right?
Yeah, many.
Blizzard
Many.
started porting
Wow.
games and working on
Getting that.
games, right? When they were Silicon and Synapse. Rovio, I think, started that way. The studio that made Warframe, Digital Extremes, right? They started that way. So it is a well-trodden path. It is less common today than it was 20, 30 years ago. But it is a well-trodden path. And I think one of the things that is different for us is I do want to make our own games. I've never once wanted the business to graduate out of code development.
So
Because we
you
had,
always see it as a new line?
yeah, I
That's
always wanted
important,
it to
right?
be a
That's very
separate
different.
business line within game breaking. Because I wanted that stability. I wanted to run a business in the game industry for the next 30 years. Like I want this company to exist for a very long time, and I never want to bet the farm on one thing.
Yeah, I mean, when you put it that way, it's like, yeah, I don't want to lose my job. Like, we're not going to gamble everything unless we can raise on it, and then if things go wrong,
Sure.
then okay. But like, typically, okay, so that just makes sense. So never, so graduate is an important word there. To
Right.
see yourself as forever trying to graduate could be digging your grave before you know it.
Yeah.
Because with that mindset, you are just forgetting that you need payroll to be paid with some recurring revenue, right? So how do you spend time to focus on making a game though? Because you got
Right.
like his own, like the thing is, sorry, I'm getting excited, but like with
Please
code
do.
dev work, there's so much to do, right? There isn't like oh, it's now done, I have delivered my asset. Like you can always make it better, you can always do this. So like, is there a person on the team who is dedicated to, how do I say it, doing prototyping over and over, and then if someone's got free time they do that? Like I feel like you don't waddle into making your own IP, so something needs to be done consistently. So yeah, what's the plan? What's the plan?
For sure. We've tried them all. We've tried all kinds of different things.
Nice.
And so at the beginning, we did code dev for a couple of years, and then everyone's crying, "Where's our own game development? Where's our own game development?" There was a period where we were doing full development on a project. It was not our IP, but it was a new game that we had designed and developed.
So from scratch?
I think from scratch.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I think one of the things I realized is I don't think that original IP is as important to people in the moment when they're doing the work as they think it is outside. I think it is really important as a company and team to own the development, right? For it to be
That's
yours.
very important distinction. Yeah. So like owning end to end the decision making process of making a game versus having your own IP. That's very different things because you can still have the stability with the second option.
Like, I mean, there are probably times where they feel it, but do you think most people working at Rocksteady on Batman are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sad I have to work on Batman"? No, like it's a cool thing. They own the game. They don't own the whole history of Batman, but like they get to carve out a cool slice. And that's been my experience. Is I'd love to do our own IP, but I think it's a lot less important than people think. Just owning the game and the design and all that is really important to the team, though. Once they're doing that, they're jazzed, they're hyped. They're not asking me when we're gonna do our own game, But when we're not doing that, they're constantly asking when we're gonna do our own game. And so the full development is great when you get those opportunities and you're talking to someone.
I don't hear about them much, but can you maybe, again, if this is common knowledge for everyone listening, give me 2 minutes because I want to know. So who would commission a studio to make a game from scratch? Is that an IP holder, or is that another game studio who's like, "Hey, we have too many ideas, So take this idea and go for it. Is that what's happening there?
It happens two different ways, right? So one way is they come to game studios and they say, we want you to build a game. That is often
Why would they do that if they are a game studio?
that's often non-game studios, right?
Okay. Okay.
And
Cool.
so in this case, we were working with a fitness tech company to build a game that drove engagement with their smartwatches, right?
Okay.
And it was really fun. We got to like play Zynga for a day and like use all of the dark patterns they use to steal your money. But instead of using that psychology against you to steal your dollars, we didn't have any
Do
of
more steps.
revenue mandate. It was just go take more steps, right? So it was just like engage with our product, take more steps, get healthy. And I was like, I can use evil psychology to make you healthy. Like this is great.
Yeah.
The other side of it is kind of the opposite way, where you're an IP holder. You would love to have more games in your IP that you don't have to fund the development for, or that you don't have to, um, own the development studio and have to have years and years of game development roadmap for them. And so someone can come to you and say, I want to make a Batman game. I love tactical RPGs. Can I make a tactical RPG Batman? Right? Can I make XCOM Batman or something? I don't know if it's a tactical RPG, but a tactical game.
All good.
And then they say that's an awesome game. Like, yes, we'll give you money for it, or yes, but we don't have any money. Like, you can have our IP if you go raise your own money, right?
Interesting. So,
Yeah.
would you say this is a? I'm just going back to the codev, basically. Sorry, the codev example. Should codevs be constantly talking to IP holders, or does it like? Let's put it this way: is there any room for a codev studio, in your opinion, to actually spend time on their own IP, or do you think it's like, look, if it's your first game, go to IP holders. It's just a better return on time. Like, do you sit on any side of the argument there?
I'm going to respond with the journey that we went through, which was step one: have this external company have a game fall in our lap. It was really fun. We did it.
How did
And
it fall
then,
in your lap though? Surely it wasn't an accident. Like someone knew someone,
yeah,
right? How
it
can
was
someone get more of those opportunities?
know a lot of people, right? It's business development. If you know a lot of people, your ears are always to the ground for, well, someone's trying to make a game and they don't know what to do, or they don't, they're looking for people to help them. So that was the first one.
Nice.
The second thing we did is that was successful. We wanted to build our own game. Everyone was screaming to build their own game after that project completed, and we had enough money. We reached a point where we could invest, and basically, if you're going to go this route, you're going to try and do original IP, you have a co-development business, someone has to be in charge of this full time. It's got to be their whole job to make it successful. It's got to be a separate business line that doesn't have as much competing interests. So we hired a design director, been in the game industry longer than I've been alive, and said, okay, here's the thing, 12, 18 months, prototype, go pitch, all that other stuff. And we did that from 2022 to 2023, pitching at GDC and everything through 2023. Not a great year to be pitching, and it was really our first crack at it. So like, we didn't get the money. Do you have a question from there?
That's interesting because that actually was one hire, technically, unless there was
Sure.
anything else I missed. So
I put
you,
two other people
yeah,
on the team, so it was a 3-person team.
yeah.
Two
So that's a lot
existing.
less than I thought, right? Like obviously we always want the happy ending, but that didn't sound as catastrophic. You probably got pitching experience. You had 3 people dedicated resource wise, but I'm guessing maybe I missed. Again, this could be common knowledge, but to get to that point to be pitch ready, this was not a gamble, right? This was just we took X amount of money. Again, you're smiling, so again, I don't know the full story, but this
We
feels
didn't have to bet
like
the farm.
there you go, right? Yeah, there you go. So you could and probably will do that process again with your lessons, and that you will get as many bats as years we have on this earth. Like you can just keep
Right.
going and not bet the farm.
But it is hard, right? And your chances are low. And so, when I tell people the dollar amount that it takes to give 3 people 18 months of runway in a relatively well-paid organization, like their eyes pop a little bit, right? Like it costs us a lot of money
A lot of
to
people
do
don't
that.
understand. 6 figures for one person is
Yeah.
not crazy.
Yeah, no, that's normal, right? Especially when you look at the whole cost altogether. But it didn't work, right? And we're going to do it again someday, but it was not the next thing that we tried, right? We rolled those people back into co-development to the best of our ability. We did have to lay off one of those folks because we couldn't find them work. But the next thing that happened is we had another opportunity that kind of fell into our lap. And I think that's one of the great things about doing a business differently is that, if you're a venture-backed studio, you have to be pretty focused on growth, pretty
The
focused
100x
on,
thing, and it's a bit.
right.
It's scary, man. Like I
Yeah.
would not want VC pressure of 100x expectation because, like, even if you know you could save the business and do 10x, you can't because they've asked for 100x. Is my understanding anyway.
So we had a crazy thing fall into our lap, right? There was a kid in Greece, and I say kid, he was 17, he was still in high school, um, that really loved this old Facebook game called Dungeon Rampage. It was like an indie Diablo thing. Um,
Cool.
Loved this game, was trying to remake it. He had like started a Patreon, raised 30 grand or something like that, and he read the game design book from our design director at the time, who was who
Ah,
was
nice.
running that original games team, like saw his email in the back, messaged him, and was like, "Hey, I'm trying to do this thing. Like, I'd love to talk to you." They had a conversation. That he introduced that kid to me, and he's like, "Dru, I think you should talk to this kid. He's really crazy, really awesome. He's doing this crazy thing." So I talked to him, and he's like, "I'm building this game. I want to get it re-released." It had closed down when Facebook like shifted
Yeah, yeah.
their
I
games
was
platform
I
or
was
whatever.
playing games. I discovered games on Facebook. I went through that
Yeah,
whole phase. I was playing the restaurant tycoon, Zynga
yeah, yeah, yeah,
poker. I was Playfish. That's the one. I was in all
yeah.
of those games.
So he was like, "What should I do?" And I was like, "Well, uh, you should stop trying to rebuild this game from scratch. It's going to be really expensive. 30 grand is super impressive, but not enough to remake a game like this. You should, if you, he had a conversation with the IP holder and they were like cool with helping him, basically, like letting
Okay,
him
cool.
have the original IP, basically. It wasn't all worked out yet, but there was like a verbal agreement.
This is the game for people
Yeah.
wondering. Very cool.
And I was like, that's amazing. If he's willing to give you the rights to it, he would be willing to give you the code and the art and
Wow.
everything else. Um, yeah, it is a really popular game. It was a super popular game in like 2013, 14, 15, I think.
Holy shit. Yeah. I think this page has a lot of followers. 2.1 million.
Yes. This is the same page from 10, 15 years ago, right? And so yeah, I was like, stop trying to rebuild this game. Go get the original source code and assets, and go talk to a publisher to get you some money, and come back to me. So we left that meeting, and my design director turned to me and he's like, "Wow, I thought you were going to be like, attaboy, apply to our internships." And I
Well, it
was
looks
like,
like I think I just spoiled what happened. What happened?
"Yeah, yeah." So I was like, "Well, that's not what I wanted to hear when I was 17. Like, I was a precocious kid trying to start a business out of my room in high school. I wanted to hear how to do it for real." And basically, fast forward 6 months, the kid gets the assets and source code off of like somebody's laptop they had loaned to their daughter, like as a hand-me-down. It was still existed. They get him all of the original assets and stuff. The publishers are beating his door down. He comes back to us and he's like, "This is getting crazy. What do I do?"
Tell me more.
Yeah, and so we at that point we're like, "Okay, let's help you out. We'll help you talk to some of these publishers. We'll help you." Like he couldn't start a business. He was a minor.
He was an illegal. Well, illegal. As in, he
Yeah,
needed to
it
win
wasn't
it.
legal for him to start a business. And so we start talking to this IP holder. It ended up being somebody who worked at Disney with my co-founder back in the day. So like there was a connection
As you
there.
do.
The IP was buried under some conglomerate that didn't care about it and was just like, "Sure, we'll sign the agreement. We have, we're good friends with the original owner of the subsidiary, which was the Disney friend." So we start to work all this stuff out, and there's all these logistics going on. And at some point, Mako, the kid's name is Mako, is like, "This is getting to be a lot. What if you guys do it? What if the entity is you guys and I stay engaged in the process?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, that would probably help. So you don't have to figure out how to set up a business when you're still a minor and all this other stuff." So we ended up being basically the name on all the agreements. and then he sort of contracted with us. There's like,
So he's now a
revenue,
contractor for you guys.
yeah, revenue sharing agreements on
Oh,
it and
cool.
everything. And it's like, okay, now that this is our thing, how would we solve this problem? And it's an old Flash game from, way back. Back in the day, League of Legends had an out-of-game client that was written in Flash, an action script. So I
Of
called some of my
course.
old buddies and I was like, does anyone know how to like, can you get this code base working again? Basically was the call I made, and found a friend that was very, very deep in that space from back in the day. He came in for like a month and just set up a development environment where we could start working on the game again. Um, and so we did that, and then basically we took Sean and said, I know you're working on this tools business or whatever, but like everyone's busy. There's lots going on. I'm on this huge project. Taylor's running all of our biz dev and CEO stuff. Can you can you help carry this game through? And Sean is like a digital archivist, man. He will just dig and dig and dig and dig. And he got all of the online services and backend running for this game. And within a pretty short period of time, like we did our first like internal play test, and we started showing it to this Discord community that Mako, this crazy 30,000 person Discord community that Mako had built up around this game, this
What?
remake of this game.
You
Yeah,
just said that as if it was a
it's
17-year-old
crazy.
built a 30,000 Discord community about a game that was released 14 years ago and hasn't been online for 8 years. Fucking hell. That's great.
Yeah, Mako's crazy. He loves this game and he really knows how to get the community jazzed about it. So, he's
That's it.
been continued to be that voice for the community. He's been working hard on this game. Yeah, so we launched the game in December. Took about a year of this like porting, couple of people, like maybe two, three people working on this at a time for about 12 months until we put it live in December, and 50,000 people downloaded it within the first month. Yeah, very positive reviews. It's like 90% positive on Steam. It's crazy. The community is just super happy to have this game back. So many people. Every morning I wake up to an email that's like, "Thank you for bringing this game back. It was my favorite game as a child." This is awesome.
That's so cool,
Basically,
man. To the moon,
fun
then? What
story.
was it? What? That's a great story. So,
Well, yeah.
what's
So, but it's a great story, but it's a tiny little business, right? This is a tidy project for three people. For a 30-person business, it's like a nice little blip on 1 month of our revenue, right? But
mm,
we can be patient, right? Our code of business is big and doing other things. This project supported a couple of people for a year. Um, Maybe we can expand on it, right? Like we're re-releasing the original content right
for me?
now,
It's like
sort of in order.
I don't know why I always do this, but if a musician releases 10 songs and one is 90% of their fame and revenue, you don't say, "Oh my god, those 9 songs were a dud."
Right.
Right? Like you need to have in a creative industry multiple projects because you also don't know. What if this
Yeah.
had 500,000 downloads?
Hmm.
Like again, maybe it's so obvious to someone listening to this, like, yeah, Harry, but no, no, no. But like, I feel like it's also fulfilling. It's also fun. You get a completed project. There's a return on investment. Those don't even hurt as an emotional feeling, right?
Right.
Even as a so like, yeah, I think this is a very inspiring story in my eyes because a 17-year-old who was still in high school built publisher worthy interest where people were knocking on their door, and then on his own found someone to develop it, and he probably made for him it's probably like crazy money compared to what you
Right.
guys did, right? He's probably quite happy right now.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
beautiful story.
I want to grow it into something, right? Like what else can we do for this audience in the same universe, in a different universe, right? There's people who really enjoy something we're able to do for them. What else can we do, right? It's a
Mm.
blip right now on our revenue. It was a successful project,
Mobile.
but that's what they want. That's what the people want.
That's right.
Um,
Hey,
how do keep giving more to that audience until it's a big part of our business? It's the beast to rival our Codev business, right? That's what I want. But I could be patient, right? That's
yeah, of
the end
course.
game.
And you can only be patient because you have a
Code
sustainable
development.
business. Yeah,
Yeah,
hell yeah.
sustainable
Um,
business.
so so if I'm nosy, tell me. But are you planning to put this on mobile?
I would love to.
Okay,
I don't know if
if it
I
makes
don't know
sense.
if it's reasonable. to do with a Flash project in 2026.
Can
That
you
was
make it into a HTML5 game, or am I being naive? Like, could you not
well,
do
that's
that?
that's the conversation I had with Mako on day one, which was don't try to remake this game. This game was made by
But
20 people.
that is remaking. So again, I don't know, but like you
Yeah,
can't
it's
just
like
copy
you're
paste Flash
basically
code
remaking it.
and make it into the HTML5 code, and that would take a weekend. You can't do
Yeah,
that.
it's
I'm
not gonna
guessing.
happen.
Okay.
Not
No,
like that. Not like
have you
that.
heard of Claude Code? Just want to double check. Okay, no, kidding.
Yeah, I mean it's doing things. It's more possible now than it used to be for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, interesting. No, this is very cool. So I guess what's next then? For Dru and Game Breaking Studios, like what's the focus for the rest of the year?
Yeah, the focus is what do we do next? Is there another project like this where we can revamp an old game? Um,
That's an interesting one. Are
right?
you
Like
looking to
what
like find those, or are you looking because you could probably find those, right? Like
yeah.
this was a Facebook page that I'm guessing was just there.
Yeah, a
Someone could have
dormant page
connected the
with 2
dots, and
million
it happened
people.
to be good old Mako, right? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's our 2026 goal for that group is to sign the next one, right?
Hmm.
And I'm pretty excited about that. I'm on the biz dev beat right now, so like having those conversations with IP holders and publishers, what else can we
Because
do?
you've also now got proof. That's a very cool thing. Maybe people don't spend enough time talking about, but we're going to talk about it now. You've now got proof again. You obviously have proof of your personal career, your founder's career. You got proof of Codev 50 clients. You got proof of at least trying to launch a game and get part of it. So now you've got proof of you develop a game, released, profitable, and there's a big value in that itself, especially for someone trying to grow their rap sheet. I think that's how you say it, like in
Sure.
the games
Yeah.
industry. Like even if it won't make the bajillions, if it's a profitable game and you're going to have more proof, it doesn't hurt. Because I'm guessing your conversation with IP holders, it comes through, right? You have this energy, like we've done this before. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that's also worth a lot, which is hard to put on paper.
It's worth so much. Reputation is everything.
Mm.
In games and in every business, reputation is everything. It's really true in services, but one of the reasons it's hard to raise money is people don't have reputation for delivering a game, right, to an audience that
Yes.
didn't exist before, or even an audience that does exist. Can you do it successfully? Yeah.
Yeah, because you've got proof of multiple things. That's interesting. Like you've got proof of serving a old audience, and it can be profitable. That's
Right.
very like when you put it that way. There's a lot of things that you've got proof of. Very cool. Dru, I want to end, which I usually do, which is for someone listening to this. I have very surprisingly got actual people in the real world who listen to this podcast, Drew, and they showed up at PGC London when I went. I had like four
Nice.
people show
Nice.
up. It was very nice. It was like, oh my god, I've been listening to your podcast. It's been so good. I was like, no way. So there's actual kids, not kids,
Yeah.
sorry. There's like people who are fresh out of university, including in their 20s. Maybe people like the example we just had there. Listen to
Yeah.
this, who maybe don't know where they want to go. Maybe feel a bit, lost. Maybe read one too many negative LinkedIn posts or like negative headlines. Yeah, big exhale comes from me
Yeah.
too. Let's talk about the positive side, maybe. Like, what do you want to tell that person that you wish you would hear if you were in their situation?
I think the answer is always that there's growth and opportunity somewhere if you're willing to dig for it. I just read through the 200-page State of the Game Industry report, and while 150 of them are doom and gloom, there's a whole section dedicated to like who's winning right now, where's their growth, and I think the answer in games and entertainment is always like, well, the next generation, right? Roblox right now is like one of those things. Roblox and UEFN, like there's growth there. There's growth in other markets. If you're willing to engage with the companies in Asia are actually having a lot of success right now, building different kinds of games for more global audiences because, Western Europe, US, we've been gaming a long time. There's nothing new under the sun for us. There's a lot of people who have a lot of new experiences yet to be had in games in the rest of the world. And so if you're willing to move, if you're willing to engage in new media like Roblox, if you're willing to forge your own path in some of these linear media is kind of having a comeback, right? Short form linear media like TikTok and all this stuff. Like there are places where people are thriving right now. And
Yeah.
if you're willing to go find them, you can win. You can
Mhm.
succeed.
Yeah. I think it's very important. If you aren't in front of you seeing opportunity, you have to go and find it. Like you just said, mathematically, there's always a top 1%,
Hmm.
regardless of how bad things are going. So 150 pages, doom and gloom, 50 pages, positivity. Let's focus
Yeah.
maybe on that. I'm the most go lucky, optimistic. Don't worry,
Yeah.
everything's great. Life is going to be amazing because, you know, you're not in the medieval war. It's going to be okay.
Sure.
There's something we can do, right? Like
Yeah.
that's my mindset. But especially in the games industry, because I was in recruitment. Maybe just to piggyback on what you said, my entire job was to speak to around 20 people because those are the people who are hiring Unity developers in all of the Nordics,
Yep.
and around five of them were hiring at a given time. And when
Hmm.
they had a hint of like, oh, I might need a Unity developer, I was like, hey, here's Jerry, and then they
Yeah.
hired Jerry. What is that, guys? That's the hidden job market. So if you were just waiting for them to post jobs, you would unfortunately be stuck by good old Harry, who was talking to them and all the people who they knew. There's like nepotism is a thing because people trust their own network. Why
Hmm.
go through the hassle of putting a job out? I'll ask my first connection. But getting into those first connections, you can do what Drew just said. Go find them, talk to them, and then like you got two projects on this call. You said because I had a network. Well, there's a reason you had a network. They liked you for whatever reason. You either worked with them in the past or gave value. So I think if as many people as possible gave value to people who are currently winning, it is a matter of time. And I don't mean that in a woo-woo sense. I mean that in the that's what I see day in day
Yeah.
out. And I think today's podcast is a good example of that. Like there is a 17-year-old who managed to get an old game back to life, profitable, and that can happen despite 150 pages of doom and gloom.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
rock on.
Well,
Love it, Drew. Thank you so much.
thank you, Harry.
Uh, I, yeah, it's been a great chat. If someone wants to maybe listen to this and they feel like they want to reach out, what's the best way to contact you? And maybe is there
Yeah.
any way that they can get your services?
Yeah. I mean, I'm Dru Erridge, Erridge, pretty much everywhere. So Twitter, X, LinkedIn. It's probably the best way you can contact me. We've got a contact page on GameBreaking.com. Any of those avenues, you can get a hold of me. I'm on LinkedIn way too much, so that's probably the easiest one.
Love it. Lovely. And
Yeah.
all those links are in the description, everyone. Great. Drew, really thank you. Thanks again. It's been a great
Yeah.
chat.
Thank you.
And
Have a good
everyone at
one.
home, goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Friday.